Hey everyone, so my half of the chapter focused in particular on multicultural instruction. And Ford spoke on how one of the most important things about multicultural instruction is that it's culturally responsive. So she spoke about how culturally responsive teachers are all about changing their instruction, differentiating their instruction to meet the needs of their students. This could be in culture, in experience, in learning styles. But the important thing about culturally responsive teachers is that they're able to change up their teaching styles to meet the needs of all their students. Another thing that she said was important of culturally responsive teachers is that they try to bridge the gap between the world of school and the world of the student. So they kind of try to make that an easy transition for the students. Culturally responsive instruction, or CRI, consists of using three things according to Ford, and those are cultural knowledge, prior experience, and learning styles. As I spoke on earlier, those are the things that the teacher changes their instruction in response to. So this is a chart that Ford had in the book that basically compared traditional or colorblind teaching strategies to culturally responsive teaching strategies. So some of the ones that I thought were the most important were in traditional teaching. It's all about the teacher. The instruction centers around her. Her teaching style is the dominant one. She's the authority. It's kind of this like, let me impart my knowledge onto you and you sit there and listen. So lecture is the norm in this kind of teaching, and there's often a test that follows this lecture. Then, on the other hand, in culturally responsive strategies, it's all about learning, and it's all about the students being able to develop their own kind of learning. So it's more student-centered instruction. The teacher does have authority in the classroom, obviously. The teacher has her expertise, but the students are able to learn from each other as well as learning from the teacher. And the teacher also learns from the student, which is an important thing. It's kind of the teacher and the students arriving at learning together. There are also less lectures in culturally responsive teaching. Obviously, there are more discussions, more debates, and there are just kind of different kinds of teaching methods that mix it up. Teachers are able to use different kinds of instruction to meet the needs of their students. We spoke on this earlier. I think it was in another either facilitation of discussion or reading. It was one of the things, but Boykin's Afrocentric model was another important part of this chapter. And I'm not going to go into it as much in detail because we've already learned about it. But I thought there was one quote in particular that was important that was in this chapter. And it said, what we are describing are stylistic patterns that seem to be observed in a large percentage of the population. It provides educators a format for observation and for thinking about children from a different perspective. And I thought this was so important because it just reminds us that when we have models like this, it doesn't just give us a one size fits all for all our students. And it's not to say that in this particular model that all of our African American students are going to act like this, but it kind of just gives us a model to say, okay, hey, maybe this will work well. Maybe we can look at this and see what we can learn about our different students. So there are 9 basic tenets in Boykin's Afrocentric model. And if we look at this chart, it basically talks about how we can use those different characteristics to teach. So they group these characteristics together. The first one was movement, verb, and harmony. And I thought the sample strategies were really good. They kind of incorporated to say these are some ways that you can use these in your classroom. And so one of the big ones was physical activity, letting your kids move around in the classroom, using role play, having experiments and field trips. Music was another big one, kind of just letting your students have different kind of opportunities to learn. You're not standing at the front of the classroom lecturing the whole time. The next group of characteristics was oral tradition and expressive individualism. The sample strategies in here actually did include lectures and seminars, oral presentations, those kind of things, but there were also things like word games, poetry, storytelling, different ways just to switch it up in the classroom. Obviously, lectures are good for some students, and sometimes there's a time and place for them, but it kind of just showed that there's some different ways that you can mix it up in your classroom. The next group was communalism, harmony, and effect, and so this included using social activities in lessons, using cooperative learning, lots of group work. It also said providing opportunities for service, community involvement, and helping others was a big one, so I thought that was a really great way that you can incorporate that into your classroom. The last group was social time management and effect, and effect was actually in there twice, but they grouped those ones together, and then said that the sample strategies were providing deadlines with reminders, allowing parts of assignments to be submitted at intervals, teaching time management and organizational skills, and connecting lessons to student interests, lives, and backgrounds. So those are a lot of different strategies, and I thought this was a cool model because a lot of these characteristics are things that I would want to incorporate into my classroom regardless of what kind of students I had, and I thought it was just a lot of great examples of ways that we could use these strategies in our classroom. So my discussion question is, what are some ways that you as a teacher practically adapt your teaching to be responsive to students' cultures, experiences, and learning styles? And I look forward to hearing what y'all have to say.